My name is Jason Miller. I'm 25, just your average office worker. In my quiet and low-key life, I have an older brother named Kevin, who is the complete opposite of me. Ever since our school days, Kevin was flashy and loved to stand out, always surrounded by friends and followers. If that was all, it would have been fine, but he was often in fights during school, and my mother was constantly called in. No matter how many times he was summoned to school, or how much he made our mom cry, Kevin never seemed to care. For better or worse, he was someone who never allowed himself to be swayed by others, always going his own way. Our mother, who raised us alone, sometimes wondered if she had made a mistake in how she brought him up. But I don't think so. Whether or not our father was present, Kevin would have lived his life freely, just as he does now. That's just who he is. There's nothing to do but give up. Upon graduating high school, Kevin left home. He's been living from paycheck to paycheck, constantly switching between part-time jobs. When we were kids, we played together all the time since we were close in age, more like friends than brothers. But as we grew older, our relationship deteriorated. Or rather, our personalities were too different, and by the time we reached adolescence, we stopped talking to each other. Even though we lived in the same house, it felt like we were strangers. That's why I didn't feel lonely when Kevin left home. I only wished that he wouldn't cause trouble for anyone as a member of our family. But of course, my wish went unanswered. When I started working, I moved out and lived alone, but I often went back home because I was worried about my mother. One day, while visiting home, Kevin suddenly showed up out of the blue. This happened when Kevin was 26. It was his first time home since high school, so it had been about 8 years. Standing next to Kevin was a petite woman with delicate features. With her beautiful face, she bowed deeply to my mother and me, who were frozen at the entrance. "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Nancy, Kevin's girlfriend." Nancy, who introduced herself with an apologetic look, was next to Kevin, who was uninterestedly looking away. Both my mom and I were surprised. Kevin's girlfriends had come to our house before, but none of them were as polite as Nancy, who greeted us. They used to ignore us, or even smoke confidently in our house. But then, Kevin made a shocking statement. "I'd am married. This is my wife, she's due in the summer. Take care." Next to my stepmother, I couldn't help but raise my voice. "Married, and she's pregnant." In response to our reactions, Nancy bowed her head again. "I'm really sorry." Seeing Nancy bow her head weakly, both my mom and I managed to calm down. We decided to hear the details from Nancy, who seemed more willing to talk than Kevin. Nancy is 22. She had been working part-time since graduating high school, but she now has an office job. She happened to meet Kevin in a bar, they started dating, and she soon found out she was pregnant. They just got married, and she's currently 5 months pregnant. I had heard from Kevin that he had already spoken to his family about our marriage registration and my pregnancy, said Nancy, her voice wavering. "Until recently, I was bedridden due to severe morning sickness. I had no idea he hadn't spoken. I'm really sorry." Nancy's parents had passed away and she appeared to be estranged from her relatives. From what I had heard, she seemed to be a sensible person, and I couldn't fathom why she was dating Kevin, let alone considering marrying him. But there was a new life growing inside her, so turning her away wasn't an option. Moreover, Kevin seemed incapable of holding down a job for long and was careless with money, leaving him with no savings. Nancy found out only this morning that he was even in debt. When Nancy pointed out their inability to sustain a livelihood, Kevin casually suggested they move in with his parents. My mother and I were dumbstruck. Nancy apologized to us repeatedly, saying she would work and would not cause us any trouble. Kevin, who had put her in debt and impregnated her, did not apologize. However, I couldn't abandon pregnant Nancy, so I accepted her and Kevin into our home. I apologize for my foolish son. Nancy, you must feel helpless without your parents. You must be worried about your living situation because of Kevin. Please live here. I'm still working, and I want you to take care of yourself and prepare for the birth, my mother said. At her words, Nancy's eyes welled up with tears. I'm sorry. As soon as I give birth and am able to work, I will start working immediately. I promise to repay this kindness, she vowed. Both things have gone awry. We are family, and that's what matters. Let's help each other out. Kevin, you need to work hard too. No more wasting money. That's the condition of you living here, got it? Kevin grudgingly accepted the condition. I get it, he muttered. And so, the three of them, my mother, Kevin, and Nancy, started living together. I had been sending money to my mother and decided to increase the amount. My mother told me I didn't need to do that for Kevin, but I was not doing it for him. I was doing it so that my mother and Nancy could live comfortably. There were many things about Kevin that were irritating and frustrating. But what was vexing was the fact that the ones who had to deal with this were our mother and his pregnant wife, Nancy. I was concerned if Nancy, who had just met Kevin after many years of him not coming home, and his mother could manage to live together, but their cohabitation was surprisingly going well. Kevin seemed to be working, and Nancy was a hard worker and considerate, which made life seem more comfortable for our mother. In fact, when Nancy's belly began to grow and she wanted to slow down, it appeared that our mother was there to support her. However, such a life didn't last long. As Nancy entered her final month of pregnancy and they thought the baby might be born any moment, Kevin disappeared. He went to work as usual but never came back. When they called his workplace, they found out that Kevin had gotten into a fight with a coworker and abruptly declared "I quit" a few days ago, and indeed he never showed up to work after that. They haven't been able to get in touch with him since. We had considered accidents or incidents, but they found Kevin's note on the desk in his bedroom. I can't handle this life after all. Being a father too, not happening, sorry. That was it. With just that, Kevin had abandoned Nancy and the child that was about to be born. Nancy broke down crying. She was so distraught that it made me and my mother worried. She didn't have a family home to return to. Kevin was her only family to rely on. I imagine she was terrified about what life would be like with a child on the way. Nancy talked about leaving the house right away. I can't impose on you with Kevin, John. There's no blood relation between me, my child, and you. I can't be that much of a burden. The one who stopped Nancy from leaving was my mother. She begged her to stay at least until the baby was born. My mother was probably worried about Nancy being alone too. About a month later, Nancy gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Mia. But while Mia was fine, Nancy fell sick after childbirth. She kept bleeding and had a fever that wouldn't go down. There was no way Nancy and Mia could live on their own, so they continued to live together. During that time, they had many discussions and decided that our mother, Nancy, and her baby Mia would continue to live together and raise Mia. I moved closer to their house and supported them as much as I could. I thought there might be times when they would need a man's help. Once, I asked Nancy what she thought of Kevin, who had irresponsibly left without even getting a divorce. I thought she might be holding a deep grudge. But Nancy wasn't harboring any resentment. Kevin was never good at living his life. He was a burden to those around him and only thought about himself. But he reached out to me when I was lonely and chose to be with me. I know he's a hopeless case, but I just can't bring myself to hate him because he gave me a family when I was all alone. I guess I just don't have a good judgment when it comes to men." She said that with a lonely smile, a smile that I think I'll remember for the rest of my life. I would have treated her better, wouldn't have made her suffer, even though I thought that I couldn't express it. Nancy was my brother Kevin's wife after all. 2 years passed, and then one day, my brother Kevin passed away. We learned about it from a call from the police. Apparently, Kevin had been living about an hour away by train. But his life was as aimless as ever. He was jumping from job to job, getting into fights from time to time. He often drank with friends until the early morning hours. And in the end, he died in a drunk driving accident. I'm sorry, Nancy. It's all because of my poor parenting that things ended up like this. Mom, having lost her son, apologized with tears swelling in her eyes. But Nancy gently stroked Mom's shoulder. It's my fault as his wife. I couldn't keep him with our family. Both Mom and Nancy blamed themselves. So, I glared at Kevin's portrait. Neither Mom nor Nancy are at fault. It was Kevin's life. Only Kevin is responsible. Both Mom and Nancy weakly nodded at my words. But when we went to Kevin's apartment to sort out his belongings, we discovered something. Apparently, Kevin, who was known for his reckless spending, had been saving money in his bank account. On the cover of the bank book, in messy handwriting, it said, "Nancy's and the kids' money. Don't use it, me." Whether he was trying to turn over a new leaf or was attempting to atone in his own way, we'll never know now. What's clear is that Kevin was saving money for Nancy and little Mia. When I saw Kevin's handwriting on that bank book, I cried for the first time since his death. My big brother, who was so bad at living, an irredeemable mess. But he was trying to change for his family. Not only me, but Nancy and Mom seemed to feel something from this fact, and we all cried together. He was by no means a good guy, but he was still my only brother. No matter how messed up he is, it seems that saying goodbye to family is always hard. I understood that. After saying goodbye to Kevin, we were met with yet another tragedy. Right after a month after Kevin's death, Mom passed away from a heart attack. There was no warning. It was all of a sudden one day. Nancy and I were completely knocked down by this. But somehow, I kept my footing, supporting Nancy. I was the only one left who could extend a hand to her and little Mia. In the 2 years since Kevin left us, Nancy had become more than my brother's wife to me. She had become the woman I loved, the woman I wanted to protect. Because of this, I had to stay strong. With this thought, I desperately held back my tears. Even after my mother's funeral, there were tons of things to think about, like what to do with the house, how and where Nancy and Mia were going to live. Maybe all of these concerns took a toll on her. Nancy fell sick. I explained the situation to my workplace and managed to get some time off. Someone was needed to take care of Nancy, and someone was also needed to look after Mia. Nancy kept saying, "I'm fine," but I insisted. And so, I ended up living under the same roof with my beautiful sister-in-law, now a widow. Since I had often played with Mia before, I managed to take care of her. Little Mia, who still didn't understand that my mother and Kevin were gone, played energetically that day and fell asleep. Nancy and I fought to go to sleep as well, but there were no guest beds in our parents' house. Mia's bed was for children, and the only adult-sized one was Nancy's. Sleeping in my mother's or Kevin's bed felt wrong. "There's only one bed, huh?" Upon my murmur, Nancy, who was slumped on the couch, answered in a small voice, "I'm fine." "What?" I looked at Nancy's face in surprise. Her tone didn't sound like she was joking, but I didn't think she was serious either. Nancy's expression was gloomy, and I understood from it that she was feeling extremely lonely and vulnerable right now. So, I forced a smile. I wanted Nancy to keep her spirits up. "I'm a big guy, you know. You'd be crushed if we slept together," I said. After a moment's pause, Nancy broke out laughing. "Haha, you're right, sorry. I'll sleep on the couch. You take the bed and get a good night's sleep. Sorry, I know it might be hard to relax with me in the house." As I said this, Nancy patted the spot next to her on the couch. "Don't worry about it. Sit down here for a bit. It's nice to have someone around after so long. Would you like to chat for a bit?" There was no way I could refuse an invitation from the woman I loved, so I sat down next to Nancy. She then let out a sigh. She looked good, so she seemed to be feeling okay for now. "A lot has happened," she said. "After Kevin, my mother also passed away, leaving just Nancy, Mia, and me. I'm sorry, my family, they've brought nothing but sadness to you and Mia," I said. Upon hearing my words, Nancy clenched her hand that was resting on her knee. "Losing your mother was devastating, but about Kevin, it's complicated. Why did he leave us? If he regretted it and was saving money for us, why didn't he come back sooner? I sometimes feel like complaining about him, but then I hate myself for thinking such things about someone who's passed away." Nancy's voice trembled, and I felt a tightening in my chest. And what's with drunk driving? He was really hopeless, but I knew he was that kind of person. I should have stopped him, but I couldn't, and he's gone now. When I think that Mia and I couldn't be the reason for him to turn over a new leaf, I feel so empty. Nancy was blaming herself. I placed my hand on Nancy's. Her hand was shockingly cold. So, I gently held it, trying to warm it up. Nancy didn't shake off my hand. "Nancy, it's okay. Don't blame yourself so much. Kevin was always a selfish man, but even so, he was trying to save money for his family before he passed away. The very fact that he was trying to do something for someone else was an incredible thing, and it was undoubtedly thanks to you and Mia that he could do so. That was my true feelings. But I don't want Nancy to be trapped in thoughts of Kevin forever. I want her to seek her own happiness more. Nancy, am I not good enough? I won't let you or Mia suffer any more sadness. Will you live by my side from now on?" Nancy was silent for a long time. Then, looking into my eyes, she slowly opened her mouth. "If it weren't for you, if I hadn't had you, Jason, I wouldn't have been able to survive. I think I feel the same as you, but please give me a little more time. I need time to come to terms with the reality that my Mill and Kevin are no longer with us." I understood Nancy's feelings very well. That's why I responded that I would wait, no matter how long it took. A year later, Nancy, Mia, and I together performed a memorial service for Kevin and our mother, then visited their graves. As we stood at the gravesite, I reflected on the past year that Nancy and I had supported each other. It seemed that Nancy had been able to reconcile her feelings over the course of the year. Today, Nancy was showing a smile as if she had let go of everything. And then, with her hands joined at the grave, she said, "Please give me your son, Mill. I promise to make him happy." Mia mimicked her, exclaiming, "Please." So I also clasped my hands. "I'll make Nancy and Mia so happy that Kevin will regret what he left behind. Let him regret it from above." At my words, Nancy showed a full-faced smile. Then, the three of us, with Mia in the middle, held hands and went home. I won't let go of these hands, no matter what happens. That much I've decided. I hope you enjoyed this. Subscribing to the channel will be a great encouragement for me to create more content. See you in the next video.